What is up, guys? Welcome to part 5 and the final installment of my Rise of Shadows Hearthstone set review. Like I mentioned yesterday, today we're going to go over all the neutral cards that were revealed that I haven't yet reviewed from the big card dump. Good news is a lot of this stuff is pretty interesting, and a lot of it actually outshines some of its class-restricted counterparts. As I say that, the first card we're going to look at is a bit of a meme card here, the 8-mana Whirlwind Tempest as a 6/6 elemental. Your minions with Wind Fury have Mega Wind Fury. So they weren't willing to make Echo a keyword, but they're willing to put Mega Wind Fury on a card. Kind of funny. How do we talk about this card? Well, it's pretty much a Shaman card, right? Kind of a neutral Shaman card here, because Shaman is the only class that can sort of direct a Wind Fury on any target. I don't think there's any Wind Furies out there that are just randomly going to survive. So you're gonna kind of need to set this up, and I think the big way to set this up possibly will be the Ravenholt Assassin on 7. And then on turn 10, you give it Wind Fury, and then you give it Mega Wind Fury with the Tempest. And that's almost 30 damage, 28 damage just from the 7x4 alone. There's another 7-drop that you might look to combo this with, but is way more vulnerable. The Line Cracker, 7-mana, 5/10. You give it Wind Fury, and then Mega Wind Fury. You attack a minion. You can do 30 damage to the face. If you attack 2 minions, you do 40 damage. And I think if you attack 3 minions, you also do 40 damage. So so it's kind of only really 2 combos there, and they're kind of only in Shaman. So a bit of a meme card here, but it doesn't take that much in your deck to do this combo, right? You only need 1 copy of Wind Fury, which you can get with Spirit of the Shark. You probably play 2 Ravenholt Assassins because they're not the worst sort of evolved target if you're playing the new evolved card. You probably play just 1 Wind Fury Tempest. For just 4 cards, you kind of set up a late game OTK, which is pretty cool. Portal Overfiend, 6-mana, 5/6 demon with the battle cry. Shuffle 3 portals into your deck. When drawn, summon a 2/2 demon with Rush. So we have a neutral take on Eldori Strider type card here, where you sacrifice a little bit of tempo to gain some tempo as the game moves forward. This is pretty cool, and there's another card here like this at 4 mana, and both of them obviously are neutral here. So any deck can sort of set themselves up for the future. And this will be pretty interesting to try. I think this one is a little bit better than the 4-drop, even though the 4-drop has the advantage of getting your demons quicker. The stats on this are less embarrassing than the 4-drop, I think, in most situations. So pretty cool design here. Definitely going to try this out. The card that gets much better with these new Demon Rush cards is Cult Master. If you can put enough demons in your deck, you start the turn, let's say you get a demon, you play your Cult Master, throw the demon into something. It's going to die. You draw a card. You might get another demon immediately. You throw that into something, it dies, and then you might get another demon immediately, etc. So a little bit of a draw engine here with Cult Master. Now, this is very slow. It's like kind of glacially slow, to say the least. But if you're the type of deck with enough control tools, it is a very interesting way to churn through your deck with exactly Cult Master. Azurite Elemental, 5-mana, 2/7 elemental. Those aren't good stats. At the start of your turn, however, you gain spell damage +2. So, we're going to assume that this doesn't have more stats. It looks like it needs more stats to be any good, but it's possible that by giving it more stats, whether that extra attack to actually have it be a threat, whether it was more health to make sure it lives for longer, the fact that if this does live for multiple turns, it will end the game, right? If you get to, if this goes off 4 times, your Frostbolts are going to like kill your opponent immediately. So if this does survive, you can protect this behind enough taunts, you will win the game. It's just the stats are so bad, guys. It also gets stolen by Cabal Shadow Priest. So I think for this to be a good card, it would have needed 1 more attack and maybe 2 more health, right? At 2/7, it's just kind of too easy to kill, and things can go really wrong with that at 2 attack against Priest. If you can protect this card, you will win their game almost more than a card that would grow, right? Because you're ignoring taunt. You just need a couple spells to sort of blast your opponent for 1 billion damage. It is cool design. It's just probably not good enough. It just needed a little bit more stats. It's a dangerous card for them to make good, though, because it just wins the game by itself eventually. Magic Carpet, 3-mana, 1/6. After you play a 1-cost minion, give it +1 attack and rush. Wow. So we have a new Hobgoblin type card. Hobgoblin up there as one of my favorite cards of all time. So this is on a short list of cards that we're going to try right away. Funny enough, this works well with Hobgoblin and WoW because it is a Hobgoblin target that also synergizes with many of the Hobgoblin cards you're probably already playing, like Firefly And just Hobgoblin targets tend to be 1 mana because you want to combo the Hobgoblin with as many 1 and 0 drops as possible. So in Standard, what are you doing with this? Seems like it's going to be a Shaman card for sure. Probably also a Druid and Warlock card. With Shaman, everyone's going to play the new Sludge Murloc guy. I forget what he's called. It's a 2/1, and it gives you another 1-drop. So it's like it's instant combo with that card, right? Because you have the Magic Carpet. It's likely to survive the turn. You play your 2/1 at some point. You get another 1/1, and they both have Rush. So it turns your sort of value card into like actual removals, right? And so yeah, it also has nice synergy with Flame Tongue Totem. Unfortunately, Flame Tongue is nerfed to 3 mana, but if Flame Tongue gives this a respectable amount of attack, going from 1 to 3 is a big deal. And then any 1-cost minion you play with Rush would work very well with Flame Tongue Totem. So looks to be like it might be a Shaman card. Also, Shaman is going to get another 1-drop Murloc, which gives them Murloc Poison, which we'll talk about at the very end. But that would be another synergy with this. Makes your 1/1 a 2-attack Rush minion. So yeah, the fact that this has so much stats means it's kind of likely, unlike Hobgoblin, to survive the turn you play it. You play this on 3, you can realistically expect this to survive, right? As long as you did something in the first 2 turns, it probably does survive. And then once it does survive, yeah, any 1-drop in your hand will help protect this Magic Carpet for going forward. So seems like it's going to be played a lot. In Druid, you also get the Acorn guy. The squirrel thing, the fluffy squirrel thing is actually called Acorn Bear, I believe. And that's pretty good synergy. If you have a Magic Carpet out, you play the 2/1. It's a 3/1 rush, so it's like a removal. And then you get 2 more, quote, removals in your hand because they're both 1 mana, 2/1 rushes. So that alone is a pretty good synergy. We're losing Firefly, unfortunately. Hunter has a ton of ways to get 1-cost minions as well, whether it's Springpaw or Halazi the Lynx. Now, those, unfortunately, already had Rush, so you're kind of losing some of the value there. But definitely see this in Hunter. I mentioned Warlock as well because, well, Warlock plays Zoo-type cards. They're already playing a bunch of 1-mana cards like Flame Imp. Flame Imp is pretty scary if it's a 4/3 with a Rush, that's for sure. Tunnel Blaster, 7 mana, 3/7 taunt, deal 3 damage to all minions. The quickest comparison and the easiest comparison is to Chillmaw, which was also a 7 mana taunt minion. It was a 6/6 and dealt 3 damage to all minions, just like this does, but you had to have a dragon. And you also play 2 of these, unlike Chillmaw, so you can consistently get this effect if you're playing it. And it's just a meta-dependent card, probably. Closest example might actually be Primordial Drake, which is better than this because you don't have to worry about silence. This is a big reason, guys, if you're playing an aggressive deck, to run silence. This has some nice synergy in sort of a control hunter deck because of 9 lives exactly. You can, after you play this, now this is late game stuff, right? This is past turn 7, but let's say you activate this as a control hunter. You play 9 lives, deal 3 damage to all minions, and then you get another Tunnel Blaster in your hand. So that's a lot of tunnel blasting for sure in a control hunter deck. Underbelly Ooze, a very interestingly designed card. 7 mana, 3/5. After this minion survives damage, summon a copy of it. So initially it looks like a kind of a silly patron card, but in reality it's not that good because it copies it, right? So if this takes 4 damage, it's not going to give you another 3/5. It's going to give you a 3/1. That means you have to do extra work to buff it. Now, if you do buff it, if you hand buff this a bunch of times, it could be pretty scary because if it takes 2-3 damage, well, you're getting the bigger version of it over and over and over, right? So it could be scary if you buff it. Good target for hand buffs. Spike Ridge Steed is leaving Standard. If you could do that in Wild, that would be pretty strong, I imagine, but kind of hard to do because you're playing a 7 mana 3/5 and then you're hoping it survives. Some part of it survives. If some part of it survives, then yeah, you target it with the Steed. So your opponent will need to deal with it. It's just kind of easy to deal with. Yeah, it's just a cool design card, probably just not big enough. It's one of those hard to design cards because if it is big, then it just scales out of control, right? If this has an extra health or 2, it becomes a little bit scary, right? Mad Summoner, very interesting card here as well. 6 mana, 4/4 demon, battlecry, fill each player's board with 1/1 imp. So when we were reviewing the Inferno, I was kind of confused at what it was trying to do, and I didn't realize that it had a synergy with this Mad Summoner. So that is a thing you could do with your Inferno in the late game. You play the Mad Summoner, then you play your Inferno, you kill all the imps you just gave them, and you buff all your demons, which would be the 4/4 goes to a 5/4, and all your 1/1s become 2/1s. That's a thing you could do at 9 mana. Sort of type of a Nixia type play, although Nixia not really a relevant constructed card ever. But that's something you can do if you're playing both Inferno, Mad Summoner. This is also a way to make your jumbo imps smaller. Now, it doesn't include your opponent's imps, but it is a way to get more imps. This doesn't really fit in a Darkest Hour deck because it's not a minion you really want to pull with Darkest Hour, and because your opponent also gets 1/1s, they are likely to sort of, well, kill your 1/1s. Now, if you combine this with Inferno and then you did Darkest Hour, that's kind of a combo again. But you could do the same kind of thing with Onyxia. So this is interesting because it also does fill your opponent's board with imps. So you can combine this with Curse of Weakness or Frost Nova to try to lock your opponent out. The only issue there, it's not that hard for your opponent to kill their own 1/1 imp, but not all classes, do that easily. If you chain this with a couple curses or a couple Frost Novas, that might be a little bit interesting. So very interesting design here because it has applications that you might not first initially think, like locking your opponent out with like a Frost Nova type card. Synergy with Knife Juggler, definitely should mention that. I believe what's going to happen is that both players' imps come out all together, and then the Knife Juggler, which is what you would want with Knife Juggler because the Knife Juggler will have a full amount of targets to sort of knife down. I don't think they would come out one at a time, and if they did come out one at a time, like where do they go first? Like, would you get one and they would get one, and then you would get one and they would? I believe they all come out at the same time, but I'm not exactly sure because of the way Call to Arms kind of pulls one at a time. Like anyone that's played Call to Arms with Knife Juggler knows your Knife Juggler comes first, and then you get pings. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I feel like I'm thinking about Magic, right? I'm thinking about they're all going to come at the same time. If you know, please comment below how it would work for sure. But I think they all come at the same time, but I don't know. Sunreaver War Mage is a 5-mana 4/4 with Battle Cry. If you're holding a spell that costs 5 or more, deal 4 damage. Notably not to a minion. Can go face. You do expect the to a minion clause on these types of cards, usually for power level reasons. This does not have it, so hopefully this is not a mistake. This card very similar to Blackwing Corruptor, which was a dragon synergy card. It was a 5/4 instead of a 4/4, but it did 3 instead of 4. I think doing 4 is better than having a 5/4. So overall, this is better than Corruptor when it works. Now, it's easier to activate Corruptor than this one, I believe. It's just easier to have more dragons in your deck than huge spells. Once you get to, I think, 6 spells or more, you can really consider looking at this. It is nice that in the late game, it can go face eventually. But yeah, it just depends on your deck, right? If your deck has 6 or more spells that activate this, then you look strongly at this. It looks broken, but it's just harder to get this active than I think it seems, right? Any sort of control deck, we're thinking about Druid maybe. Mage for sure can look at this very easily because they have both Flame Strike and Blizzard, but even Warrior has Brawl. I'm just not sure what else they're playing besides Brawl. We'll see. But any deck, once you hit 6 or more targets in your deck for this, then you can definitely consider playing it. Reoccurring Villain, Death Rattle. If this minion has 4 or more attack, resummon it. So all you have to do is hand buff this once, and it comes down as a 5-mana 4/7 that summons a 3/6 when it dies. That's a lot of stats for 5 mana. This will combo with the Arena Fanatic card on curve, so you're losing a bit of tempo with your Arena Fanatic. 4-mana 2/3, not good by any means, but you're following it up with a 4/7 that turns into a 3/6. Now, it doesn't have Taunt, but that is a lot of stats on curve, for sure. If you have Sneaky Devil in Wild, this will continue to resummon itself, right? Because it's always going to be a 4/6, and it's always going to resummon itself as a 4/6. So pretty cool synergy there, and that's something we'll definitely try in Wild. Portal Keeper is the other neutral portal demon in the set, this time at 4 mana for a 5/2, and it shuffles 3 portals in your deck. When drawn, you get a 2/2 demon with a rush. So the key here is if you can play this in an aggressive deck and protect its puny 2 health, you can actually use it as a 5 attack minion. It's insane. If you can't, then it's not as good, I think, as the other one. The advantage this one has is it does come out earlier, and you're more likely to get your demons earlier in the game, like you could with Faldor's Strider. So if you're ahead, this card's quite good. If you're behind, this one I think is worse than the other one. Now, the cool thing is that you get to play both the portal cards in your deck to sort of guarantee that you're getting these demons consistently throughout the game. You're investing in the, for the future, right? Now, we mentioned Cult Master, and I think that's really cool with these cards. Once you have Cult Master down and you put a bunch of portals in your deck, it's possible you chain through your deck really quickly, which is pretty cool. Arcane Watcher, 3 mana 5/6, can't attack unless you have spell damage. I believe this is just a better version of Ancient Watcher. You can play it the same way, wait until you get a Silence or Taunt, but because it has the extra clause that it can attack with spell damage, it's going to be much more of a threat to your opponent because they know at any point you can plop down a spell damage minion and go to town with this thing. So yeah, it's going to be used the same way Ancient Watcher has in the past, with cards like Silence, Defender of Argus, or even stuff like Shadow Flame, but you can randomly attack with it once you play a Blood Mage Thanos or something of the ilk. This has so much stats it can't really be ignored by any deck running Defender of Argus and any deck that might look at a random spell damage type card. Early Shovel Fist, 9 mana, 9/9 rush. So this is kind of the arena fodder card. I will say it is a very good arena card, much like Norse Kraken was. Very similar to Kraken in that sense, because you play the 9 mana, 9/7 to deal 4 damage. This does something kind of similar. It can't go face, obviously, to win the game, but you're likely to kill a 4-drop and be left with, a 9/4 or something. Very similar to what Norse Kraken did. Almost more versatile than Kraken in the sense that it can kill bigger minions. Less versatile in the sense that it can't go face. Heroic Innkeeper, 8 mana, 4/4 taunt, but has the battlecry gain +2/+2 for each other friendly minion. So once you have 2 minions, you're getting the Ironbark Protector, which is surprisingly good a lot of times in Constructed. We are coming off the Lich King meta here a little bit to some extent. The Lich King was powerful because it had incremental advantage going forward, but a lot of times the power of Lich King was just the fact that it was an 8/8 taunt. So not something you can ignore. All you need is 2 minions. If you have a Spirit of the Shark, this thing can get really big. If you have 4 minions or more, this thing is an absolute monster. This card here looks like the definition of a win more card, and unlike Bone Mare, you don't get the immediate effect of the sort of huge attack. If your opponent can't deal with like a 12/12 or 4/14 taunt, this definitely ends the game very, very quickly. So even though it is a win more card, by definition, it wins really hard. Eccentric Scribe, 6 mana, 6/4 Death Rattle, summon for 1/1 Vengeful Scroll. So immediately you're going to compare this to Highmane. It unfortunately doesn't have that 5 health that Highmane has. That's a big break point for Highmane. More likely, you have to compare this to Piloted Sky Golem, which was a 6 mana, 6/4 Death Rattle that summoned a random 4 cost minion. I think the Death Rattle on this one is better than the random 4 cost, because it's just more sort of guaranteed, and you can do some nice things with 4 different minions on the board, right? If you add up all the stats together, it's only 1 stat off a Highmane, right? Because the 1/1s do technically add up to the same as 2 2/2s. None of them are beasts, which is a big plus for Highmane. So while it's easy to compare it to Highmane, I think it does fall short of Highmane by a little bit. And I think it might be a little bit better than Pilot Sky Golem, however, which did see a little bit of play as a mech card. And I think the fact that you're guaranteed to get these 1/1s is a pretty good deal in decks that want to take advantage of that. So pretty cool card here. It definitely will see play. Safeguard is a 6 mana 4/5 mech with taunt, and the Death Rattle summon a 0/5 Vault-8 with taunt. So we just mentioned how many raw stats you can get at 6 mana. Here we go again. This gets 10 stats worth of taunt. Now the 0/5 might die for quote free, but that takes a lot of resources and time from your opponent. And if the 0/5 survives the turn, it makes a good magnetized target. All the classes that still have quote Death Knight cards, whether it's Dr. Boom, Jiraxis, or Hagatha, are going to take a strong look at this card because of how well it can kind of get you to the late game. Violet Warden is a power creeped Archmage here. Now a 6 mana 4/7 with taunt over the Archmage, and makes the card way better because 6 mana 4/7 taunt almost good enough on its own. And anytime you just randomly throw spell damage on something, it's going to make the card way better. Spell damage is something you normally have to pay a price for, right? So this card here looks like it will see play in some form or another, whether it's empowering swipes or comboing with mage spells. Dalaran Crusader, 5 mana 5/4 with Divine Shield, is definitely very powerful in the right situation, but it's a little bit too close to a pit fighter type card, probably to see play in Constructed. Proud Defender, 4 mana 2/6 taunt, has +2 attack while you have no other minions, which is not a hard thing to do, especially if you're a control type deck. Might get played like Tar Creeper got played in aggro decks as well, just because sometimes things go wrong. Sometimes you're also trading your board first, and then you can go face with this to do 4 damage. So yeah, I think this card is really strong. There's a bit of a hole at 4 mana at neutral. So yeah, this will definitely see tons of play. Soldier of Fortune, 4 mana 5/6 elemental. Whenever this minion attacks, give your opponent a coin. The last card we saw like this was Hungry Dragon, Hungry Drake, something like that. Same stats, and you gave your opponent 2 coins when it died. This one, you absolutely control whether your opponent gets coins or not. If you only want to wait until this gets taunt or gets silenced, you absolutely can. Your opponent won't get the coin. And in some games, you're going to play this, and giving your opponent coins not going to seem that big of a deal because, well, you're attacking with a big 5/6. So I do think this is better than Hungry Dragon. It doesn't have the dragon tag, which is important. This has the elemental tag, which I think nowadays is less important, although it has some synergies. The fact that you control whether your opponent gets a coin or not, I think is important, and I do think this card will see some play. Violet Spell Sword, 4 mana, 1/6, gain +1 attack for each spell in your hand. Unfortunately, this one does compete a little bit with Proud Defender on turn 4. It's possible you're just playing both of them in the same deck. They do kind of want to be in the same deck. The Proud Defender, probably in a deck with a low minion count, and if you have a low minion count, well, Violet Spell Sword could be quite big on turn 4, so you might have 2 options as with a 4-drop in your heavy spell deck. Henge Clan Sneak here, 3 mana, 3/3 stealth. This is the type of arena fodder card we like to see because it is kind of fringe constructed playable in some sense. If your deck is playing a lot of buffs like Blessing of Kings, well, this is a guaranteed target, much like Jungle Panther. This is probably worse than Jungle Panther. It doesn't have the beast tag. Jungle Panther doesn't see any constructed play generally, but there's always synergies like spell buffs and cards like Shadow Flame. So there are things to do with stealth minions to be sure. Flight Master, 3 mana, 3/4. Battlecry, summon a 2/2 Griffin for each player. Good news is that there's no Baku Rogue in standard anymore. So if you're playing this, you're looking to have a way to kill your opponent's 2/2 kind of for free, which means weapon on turn 2. There is a new Fiery War Axe, which would go well with Flight Master. Even if you played the weapon as a 2 mana 2/2, 2 attack, 2 durability, you could kill the Griffin on turn 3. So that's a thing. Hunter also has a 2 mana weapon, I believe. I think it's cost 2 mana, so there's something there. The Griffin might be a beast. Not sure. I guess it would be a beast. I don't know. Griffin is a beast? Maybe not. Griffin or Wyverns are beasts. Griffin's probably not beasts. Anyway. So yeah, if you can kill your opponent's 2/2 on turn 3, this is good. So it might be a narrow card here. Overall, cool design though. Faceless Rager, 3 mana, 3/1. Copy of friendly minions' health. Alright, so if you play a 2 mana 2/3, all of a sudden you get a pretty good deal on your 3-drop. And in the late game, this thing just scales really well because you're likely to be able to play a mid-sized minion, whether it's a Yeti or what have you. All of a sudden you get a 3 mana 5/4 or 5/5 or bigger, right? So scales really well into the late game and not that hard to get a pretty good deal on turn 3, honestly. This combos well with the new 06 we're going to see here in a second. So yeah, there's definitely going to be a lot of Faceless Ragers in the new standard environment. Spellbook Binder, 2 mana, 3/2. Battlecry, if you have a spell damage, draw a card. This card probably sees play too, just doesn't lose anything stat-wise. And if you happen to have a spell damage card on the board or in your hand, you can play them together, draw a card. Right? Anything that draws a card for this cheap will see play. Again, you're not losing any stats for this effect. Sunreaver Spy, 2 mana, 2/3, and the Battlecry, if you control secret, gain +1/+1. So yeah, turn 1 Secret in Aggro Paladin leads to turn 2 Totem Golem now. Very scary. Also scary anytime they have the coin and go. I mentioned this last time. Turn 1 Secret Keeper. They coin out a secret into one of the 2-drops here, whether it's the weapon, the Fiery War Axe, or this new Sunreaver Spy. I'm not sure which one's scarier, if they get a 3/4 or a Fiery War Axe to protect their 2/3 Secret Keeper. Both equally scary, probably. This will see play in Hunter too, because pretty easy to play a 2 mana spell and then just get a nice Totem Golem here. Whether it's because you coined out a secret on turn 1, play this turn 2, or at some point in the later in the game you play a secret and Sunreaver Spy. It's just too efficient not to see play in both Paladin and Hunter. This thing is so efficient that we do need to look at Mage and Rogue too. Right? You can imagine turn 3 Kirantor Mage into secret and then dropping 2 of these next turn. That's a lot of tempo for sure. Even Rogue might be looking at this guy with their small choice of secrets, just because getting a 2 mana 3/4 at any point in the game is a sweet deal. Mana Reservoir, 2 mana 06 spell damage +1. This is no Street Trickster, guys. This is much better than Street Trickster because Street Trickster came down on turn 3 and your opponent was likely able to just completely kill it for free. This coming down a turn early in the early game is a big deal, and it is likely to survive the turn. And once it survives one turn, you can definitely protect it, whether it's with Arcane Explosion or whatever sort of spells you have planned with this thing. And once you protect it for the turn that it's kind of in danger, you start playing taunts, all of a sudden you have spell damage for the rest of the game. So this card is quite scary at just 2 mana. Dollarine Librarian, 2 mana 2/3 Battlecry, silence adjacent minions. All right, so we have another Priest silence card here. Always like to see cards that randomly hose Frost Nova running around. I remember Wailing Soul. We would play Wailing Soul decks and just randomly beat Freeze Mage because we could unfreeze our board. So cool design here, I guess. Doesn't give up anything on the stats. You can just play this as a 2 mana 2/3. There are reasons for other classes besides priest who want to silence minions, whether it's the big the 4 drops, right? There's a 3 mana 5/6 to silence. There's also a big 4 mana 5/6 guy to silence as well. So there are reasons for other classes besides priest to want to silence their own things. And don't be surprised if everyone is running sort of a silence package. Arcane Servant is another 2 mana 2/3, and that's pretty much all there is to say outside the fact that it is also an elemental. Potion Vendor, 1 mana 1/1 battlecry, restore 2 health to all friendly characters. And when I first saw this card, I actually thought it was one of the lackeys, because you normally don't see a battlecry this kind of, quote, powerful on such a cheap card. Now, this card, you know, because this battlecry is so strong in the right situation and it's so cheap, this card will see play in Warlock at the very least. Definitely synergizes with the healing synergies that Druid and Paladin have, although that's not the best thing probably to do in the world, but could definitely be a thing. This thing is too cheap to not see play. Toxfin, 1 mana 1/2 Murloc. Give a friendly Murloc poisonous. Wow, this card is sneaky powerful because it's neutral and it combines with Bluegill Warrior, which is also neutral. This definitely, at the very least, is a key card in the new Shaman decks, because all Shaman decks just kind of have to play all these Murlocs because of the power of the 2-drop. And because this works so well with Bluegill Warrior as sort of a crackling Razor Maw, it might just see play all over Standard. So yeah, definitely one of the strongest cards in the set. So that concludes my Rise of the Shadows Hearthstone set review. If you missed any of the previous 4 parts, I will try to link them below. Not going to get all the ratings right here, but hopefully you guys enjoyed it along the way. If you made it through all 5 videos, congrats to you. You are one of few. We will be streaming a couple times before the expansion hits on Tuesday. Thinking about new meta decks. Maybe try hard a little bit. Maybe make some silly Beastmaster decks along the way as well. And with the wipe to Standard, I do have more incentive to see what we can do, see what the most powerful things to do are, not necessarily go full meme ahead. And hope you guys will join me on Tuesday.